A beautiful Sunday in central New York for field hockey as number 20 Penn State comes to town to face number 6 Syracuse. Welcome into our studios, Dan Shalom alongside me. I'm Riley Underwood. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning, going into the afternoon. And Syracuse not looking too bad, coming off a win against Duke on Friday.
Big win against 7th-ranked Duke for this squad, 1-0 a couple of days ago. And Riley, that was really a statement for this team because Syracuse had 1-0 leads in both games last weekend in their ACC opener, but would blow both those games. So that was a huge statement win yesterday.
The Orange started this season 6-0, and now they've lost 2 of their last 3, but both of those opponents, those were good ranked teams, not bad losses by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a Syracuse team that comes in with high expectations this season, and those games are going to need to be won later in the season.
Certainly, that 6-0 start was the best for them since 2017, and I caught up with head coach Lynn Farquhar last weekend, and she said this team wasn't satisfied with that start. They want more, but that past weekend kind of set them back. But that was a huge statement for them to go out there, beat Duke, carry some momentum into today against Penn State.
They got the train back on the tracks against a very good Blue Devils squad, and it was a top 10 matchup, a 6-7 matchup against Syracuse and Duke. That was on Friday. Pre-game, Alyssa Manley had her number 5 jersey retired pre-game, part of that 2015 National Championship team, joining Julie Williamson as the only players to have their jerseys retired by the program. Early on in the first quarter, the APC. It was working for Syracuse. That's where they make their money. Bo Von Kempen gets her 16th goal of the year. That leads the nation.
I mean, who else, right? You can't make this stuff up at this point. Von Kempen is simply unstoppable. Patty Strunk with a beautiful insert. Liz Stonga doing a great job trapping it. And then who else but Bo to put it home?
Syracuse had some more chances later on in the first half, but just couldn't get anything going after that initial goal, but it held on for a while.
And it was large in part to these goalkeepers, Jesse Iceland and Tawny King. They did a great job shutting the Blue Devils down and giving this Orange offense space and opportunities to work.
And that Duke goal went in, but it was ruled no good because of the foul committed inside the circle, so it remained a 1-0 game. There was a very good chance by Syracuse, a swing and a miss, and a clear by the Blue Devils.
And then coming down to the wire here, Duke had an 11-on-9 with 2 minutes to go after Syracuse took a green card. The Orange weathered the storm, though, and got through it.
Defensively, a very good game for Syracuse. The only other time Duke has been shut out this season was against number 1 Northwestern. They came in averaging almost 3 goals per game. Syracuse gets their 4th shutout of the season.
And that offense was really the story of the game for Syracuse. 12 shots, double Duke in shots on goals as well. And you just go back to last weekend where the Orange held 1-0 leads to both those ACC teams. This time they hunkered down and get the shutout.
Don't get it twisted. Duke had their opportunities, just couldn't convert when it mattered. And Syracuse got even more of those opportunities. They love pushing the pace. They love moving in transition. They got those shots on goal. The only convert was on the APC. Of course, the player that netted that goal was number 16, Bo Von Kempen, matching her jersey number with her 16th goal of the year. Mind-boggling numbers early in the season for Bo Von Kempen. She's just great, and those APCs, best in the nation.
It's really hard to believe. I caught up with her last weekend, and I asked her, what changed for you from year 1 to year 2? Because she had 15 goals the entire season last year, and she actually looked around to her teammates at practice and asked, hey guys, anyone see anything I'm doing better? But she went on to say that her dominance at the top of the circle on the APC has been what's working so well so far for her. And Riley, I don't know if you're keeping count here, but Syracuse's all-time single-season goals record, 31, and she's at 16. We're not even halfway into the season.
Doing a little leaderboard watching early this year. Definitely be a possibility, and Von Kempen would love to stay on track. SU has 13 penalty corner goals. She has 10 of them. She scored in every game but 2 earlier in the season, setting the program record for goals in a game versus Lock Haven. She had 6. I don't know if you're keeping tabs on the schedule for Lock Haven. They're 0-9 right now. Not a great opponent, but still, Von Kempen, 1 short of the national record for a single game goals. This team runs on Bo Von Kempen.
Certainly, and the past 3 games, the only person that has scored for Syracuse has been Bo Von Kempen. It shows you really that when Bo Von Kempen scores, Syracuse wins, but when they don't get enough production from her, they come up short.
And, if Bo Von Kempen is Batman, then someone has to be Robin. In this case, it's Patty Strunk. She's the inserter for all those APCs that Bo Von Kempen capitalizes on. Patty Strunk has been a very nice second fiddle for what the Orange are doing this year.
11 assists so far this season. That leads the team. And Patty Strunk is a player who didn't really get playing time last year. I talked to head coach Lynn Farquhar about what's been working so well and why Patty is in the lineup. And she said that she wanted it. She had the drive. She's been consistent. And she credits Strunk with why Syracuse's APC has been so good to start this season.
Those dozen assists are good for tops in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Patty Strunk, a very good player for this Orange squad, and a player they'll need today if they want to beat number 20 Penn State here at home. But it hasn't always been in Syracuse's favor. It has recently. Penn State actually leads this all-time series by a whopping amount, but Syracuse has dominated late. They've won their past 6 matchups against the Nittany Lions, and it's a series that dates back to the 80s.
However, the past 2 matchups between these two sides, 2-1 victories, both for Syracuse down there in Happy Valley. So this has been a very, very tight matchup between these two sides. The biggest trend that I like to pick out among these 4 games is that Syracuse has only let up 1 goal each time these teams have played. They're going to need that defensive performance once again here this afternoon.
The Orange have won the last 6 games. Take those away. They're 124-1 against the Nittany Lions. These two teams haven't played at Coyne since 2014. 2007 was the last time the Nittany Lions came out on top. And we're going to talk all about the Nittany Lions. We've got the Orange covered. How about we talk a little Penn State field hockey after this break? Stick with us. A top 20 Big Ten ACC matchup in Syracuse today as the Nittany Lions go on the road to face the Orange at JS Coyne Stadium. Welcome back to the show. Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalom. The Orange were in action as they got that 1-0 victory over Duke. The Nittany Lions were also in action at home. They faced Michigan State, and they come out with a 2-0 victory.
That was a huge one for Penn State. They finally get their first win in conference so far this season. And in that game, it just felt like a matter of time till the Nittany Lions broke through. It was 0-0 at the half, but then 11 shots and 6 APCs for Penn State in the third quarter. Michigan State had nothing, and then the Nittany Lions finally broke through in the fourth, able to get a 2-0 victory.
In State College, it was scoreless for the first 54 minutes of the game. Penn State cashes in late in the fourth quarter. 2 goals to get the victory over the Spartans. And it's a Spartans team that hasn't had a winning season since 2014. They've been struggling recently, but Penn State was on a losing streak. It was nice for them to get back on track at home.
And a big thing for Penn State was that goaltender Abby DeVerka did not let up a goal. We'll talk about her a little bit more later. But before this, she had never had a shutout in her career. So big for her to finally see that 0 up on the board and really give her team a chance to win.
21 shots for Penn State, 11 of them coming in the third quarter. Well, where does Penn State go for their offense? Last year, they lost an Olympian in Sophia Gladio. She had 20 goals last year. The next closest had 3. So who steps up? Well, the answer seems to be a lot of the Nittany Lions. A lot of them are stepping up. Ella Jenis is one of those big-time players for Penn State, but they kind of spread the wealth around.
They've got a multitude of goal scorers right now that can really make a difference. Also a bunch of assisters as well. You look down, Morgan Snyder, Caitlin Strouser is in there as well, Natalie Freeman. There's so many players here for this Penn State squad that can contribute, and that's what makes them so dangerous. It's not like Syracuse where you know you have to shut down Bo Von Kempen and you got a shot. On any given day, any of these players could make a difference for the Nittany Lions.
The scouting report is full for Lynn Farquhar and Syracuse. Not just one player to focus on. They got a whole bunch of them. Joji Purdy, a really good player for Penn State as well. Well, when you're going from the goal scorers to the goalkeeper, they have one in Abby DeVerka, who was really thrown into the fire early last year for Penn State as a true freshman. Started the majority of her games. She's kind of the de facto starter for this year now.
Certainly, and that's why you got to take all these numbers with a grain of salt. She's only a sophomore and got thrown into this role as a freshman, and she is starting to settle into her own, like we alluded to a little bit earlier. Finally got her first career shutout against Michigan State a couple of days ago, but before that, a rocky ride for her, letting up a goal in every single game that she played. But for Penn State, they're loving the way that she's starting to develop, and they're hoping that she can turn into a top-level goalkeeper in the Big Ten.
That last shot, just a little late to the party, Daverka was, and she's still going into her role as the starter. She's confident, coach says, but still needs to work on that development. That comes with time. She's only a sophomore. This is a role she'll likely have for the next 2 years as well.
And that's why you got to calm down. Don't stress if you are Penn State. Plenty of time left. She's starting to show that she can be the starter for this team consistently while giving them a shot to win. Showed that against Michigan State a couple of days ago, and really hoping to do that here against a potent Syracuse offense.
And this is a game where she could prove her worth against the 6th-ranked team in the country. And this is also a game where all 3 goalies that will likely play can prove themselves. Jesse Iceland, the Monmouth transfer, and Tawny King, a true freshman. They've split time this year for Syracuse. That hasn't changed throughout the season, 2 quarters for each usually, but neither of them really standing out where they get that full-time role.
I talked to head coach Lynn Farquhar about this split goalie situation last weekend, and what she told me was on the most recent road trip, both these goaltenders had a talk with the team and said they are both going to support each other in being the #1 goaltender, and Farquhar went on to say she couldn't have 2 better keepers representing this program. So Syracuse is very happy with their situation right now. And Riley, you got to remember, King is only a freshman, and she's putting up elite numbers so far this season.
And this could be a game. We talked about how many shots each team has had in their past couple of games. This game could also come down to the goalkeepers as well. And when we come back, we'll talk to our color commentator for today's game, Brent Underwood. Stick with us. A beautiful day for some ranked field hockey in Syracuse. Penn State takes on Syracuse at JS Coyne Stadium. Thanks for sticking with us. Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalom. We have a very special guest. We're joined by the analyst for today's game and All-Patriot League goalkeeper, Brent Underwood. Brent, thanks for joining us. And I have a question for you. Syracuse, they've evenly split their goalkeepers between Jesse Iceland and Tawny King this year. Is this kind of an early season thing, or is this a trend we can expect to last throughout the rest of the season?
So, unless there's a drastic change within the Syracuse team, expect to see both of these goalkeepers have their first and second half roles throughout this season. Really, both goalkeepers have embraced their roles. They have a unique skill set that each of them bring to this team. And what's greater than their skills is actually their camaraderie and their ability to not only compete, but also support each other throughout this season as a dual goalkeeper.
Bryn, Bo Von Kempen has been so hot to start this year for Syracuse. My question to you is, what other sources of offense can Syracuse look to in this game outside of Von Kempen?
No doubt Von Kempen is an attacking prowess on those offensive penalty corners, and other teams have picked up on that and have started defending properly on those penalty corners against her. I think we're going to have to see more from the forward line in the field of play, converting those offensive opportunities when they can. So not just relying on her on APCs, but gaining opportunities to score before they need to go to APCs.
Bryn, last one I got for you. We were just talking about it, about how Penn State's offense has so many different options, a bunch of people that can contribute. How is Syracuse's defense going to handle that?
Now, Penn State gets the most of their offensive opportunities in the second half of their games, and that's somewhere where we've seen Syracuse struggle. They're really a first half team and then tend to fall off in that second half, so they're really going to have to stay mentally tough and focused against a team that really begins to pick it up in the second half, like Penn State. So there's going to have to be a mental shift like Syracuse did during the Duke game on Friday that they're going to have to bring into today.
Thanks so much, Brent. Enjoy the game.
Thank you. You guys too.
I'm sure we will. It's a big field hockey matchup. We're going to be talking about all of that and more, plus a Syracuse coach breaking school records. A sunny Sunday in central New York as number 20 Penn State travels to JS Coyne Stadium to take on 6th-ranked Syracuse in just a moment. That starts at noon, but we've got a little more pregame coverage for you. And another coach at Syracuse that's breaking some records. Head coach of the men's soccer team, Ian McIntyre, won his 142nd game this past week when he beat Colgate 3-0. That's a new program record for men's soccer as he passes Dean Fody, who was his predecessor, who he replaced 16 years ago.
And McIntyre said that the win was not only for him, but for the Syracuse community. And he also acknowledged that while this season hasn't been the best start for Syracuse, that he thinks this could be a momentum builder for this squad. McIntyre is such a decorated coach, obviously has that 2022 national championship along with 8 NCAA appearances. He is a Syracuse coaching legend.
Talk about those 8 NCAA tournament appearances. Before he got there, Syracuse had only been to the tournament one time. Most importantly, he's the man that led the Orange to their first ever national championship in 2022 over Indiana. 2022 Coach of the Year nationally. Big East Coach of the Year in 2012. ACC Coach of the Year in 2015, 2022.
We could go on forever.
And now he adds another one, most wins in Syracuse program history.
That's just special for McIntyre, and this is a squad that's really looking to turn things around. It's been a slow start for them to the season. That was Syracuse's second home win of the year against Colgate, so they're hoping for that to really be the momentum booster.
A decorated career so far for Ian McIntyre, and good guy to lead the squad moving forward. And you talked about it. They won that game against Colgate. They also won last night. So let's take a look around the hill at what other games have been happening in Syracuse. Taking that win over California on the road, 2-0. But one thing that sticks out, that 38-3. Syracuse football falling to Duke at home. It wasn't a very good game for the Orange.
Not at all. Let's ignore that score and look elsewhere. But for that Duke game for Syracuse, they were just outplayed. Fran Brown talked about it. He said he was outcoached. He takes responsibility for that loss, and they're going to look to bounce back in a big way against SMU next week. And then on the other side, Syracuse taking on Louisville over in women's soccer. And that's a big one for Syracuse. They have not beaten an ACC team so far this season, that being against Stanford out on the West Coast. They have not beaten an ACC squad since 2022. So maybe with the men's team getting back on track, same thing can happen for the women out in California.
A lot of action to take up your time on this Sunday here in Syracuse if you're an Orange fan. Let's take a look around the NCAA at the other field hockey matchups happening in the top 20. One that sticks out to me, I'm looking at number 5, Liberty. Liberty's the team that beat Penn State in their season opener. They're 6-1. They look really good as they go on the road to take on William & Mary.
Watch out for the Flames. I'm going to go to the top left. Look at North Carolina taking on Boston College. That's a Tar Heel squad that fell 2-1 in double overtime to Wake Forest, a team that Syracuse lost to last weekend. So right now in the ACC, it really feels like anybody can beat anyone.
And no, we're not ignoring the only other matchup besides this one going on that features 2 ranked teams. Harvard going on the road to play Monmouth. That's Jesse Iceland's old school in Monmouth. Harvard looking pretty good, ranked number 4 in the country.
Harvard looking great, and Syracuse faced Harvard last year, actually got eliminated in the NCAA tournament in the first round against the Crimson, so that is a gritty squad that is always looking to win.
The Crimson, the team that took Syracuse's number 4 spot in the most recent rankings. Well, when we come back, Dan's going to give you his players to watch and keys to the game. You don't want to miss it. Oh, we're just a few minutes away from number 6 Syracuse hosting number 20 Penn State in a big-time field hockey matchup. Welcome back, Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalom, a big top 20 matchup at JS Coyne Stadium. Let's talk about the players we need to look out for. Who's going to win this game for either of these teams? Dan, who's the player to watch for the Nittany Lions?
I'm going to go here with Olivia Marthens, Riley. This is a player who had the game-winning goal against Michigan State a couple of days ago for Penn State, and she is only a freshman, a player who had 119 goals in high school, finally starting to find her footing. I think that she's going to carry the momentum from a couple of days ago into this game against the Orange. And then on the Syracuse side of things, I'm going to go with another young player in Aubrey Turner. And you might be asking me, why would you pick a player who has hasn't had a point in 5 games' time. Well, Turner had a goal and an assist against Ohio State and Rutgers, 2 Big Ten teams, and she also now has a weekend of ACC field hockey under her belt. I feel like she can make a true difference. Head coach Lynn Farquhar said her speed is unmatched, and it's all about getting shots on net today, Riley.
Sure will be. And we talked about the players to watch. Is that one of your keys for the game? What's the key to victory for Penn State?
Well, it's got to be get shots and convert on those shots. This is a Nittany Lions squad that has had over 16 shots over their last 2 games. And in the last 3 games for Syracuse, they have not faced a squad that has had 16 plus. So Penn State is going to have a plethora of opportunities. They just have to cash in, because you know that Syracuse, when they get their APC, is going to convert at least once. And that takes me to the orange side of things. You have to convert on the APC. We've seen how it's worked over the last 3 games. All the goals have come off attacking penalty corners. If Syracuse does not score on the APC with Von Kempen, they are simply not going to win this game.
Well, earlier this week, Ella Jenis said they need to play confident if they're going to beat Syracuse. She said in their game against number 10 Maryland, they weren't confident because of that number next to their name. That number's just 4 slots higher versus Syracuse. Confidence, the goal for Ella Jenis and her Nittany Lions. Well, we're going to send it out to the broadcast as Syracuse hosts Penn State in a big-time Big Ten ACC matchup. We'll be back at halftime and postgame right here on Cuse.com. Do we have an upset brewing this Sunday afternoon? Penn State leading Syracuse 1-0. It's their first time leading at halftime against the Orange since 2007. And that game, of course, was the last time the Nittany Lions have beaten the Orange in field hockey. Welcome into our studios. Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalaman. Penn State, they've started it off 1-0 so far.
And the panic meter is definitely high for Syracuse. This is the first time that they've trailed in the first half at home this season, Riley. So definitely some concern here for the Orange.
Penn State starting off hot 1-0. Syracuse, they've had their chances with the shots. They just have not been hitting the back of the net. And it's all started out with just not getting any opportunities, not capitalizing on those opportunities.
That's been it, Riley. If you look so far in this game at the stats, Syracuse had 7 shots in that first half, along with 2 penalty corners and a penalty stroke, but they couldn't convert on anything. And Bo Von Kempen has been a perfect 5 for 5 this season on the stroke. She gets stopped right there.
That's a very rare miss by Bo Von Kempen. She doesn't miss many of those opportunities. We were talking about it when we were watching the game. Said, oh, here it comes. It's going to be 1-0 because Bo Von Kempen got a one-on-one penalty stroke. That's a dangerous woman to be going across of. And then you have this Olympico-style goal from Morgan McMenamin. It's her first goal of the season, the second goal of her career. Beautifully done. A really tough angle by McMenamin.
I was in disbelief watching that. She just threw in that cage and it went in for Syracuse. Just a little bit of a defensive breakdown on that play. Bo Von Kempen was tracking back and McMenamin just gets a shot and it trickles in.
Look at this shot differential. Syracuse, 9 shots, 3 of them on goal. Penn State, their first shot was on goal and it went in. And they got 2 more since then. 0 corners. We were talking about it before. The corners will be the key for both of these teams to victory. Well, maybe not. Maybe it could be for Syracuse if they're not converting. But Penn State, they haven't needed the corners. They've had 0 corners so far, and they're leading at halftime.
And things really slowed down for Syracuse. In that second quarter, just 2 shots, no corners. It seemed like Penn State finally got possession. They didn't necessarily have a lot of chances, but they were still controlling the play compared to that first quarter where it was all Orange.
But there have been some violations committed inside that shooting circle. That's why the Orange had those penalty corner chances, but they just haven't been able to convert. Bo Von Kempen tried to get it done early on. She had that penalty stroke. She had a couple penalty corner attempts. Just haven't been able to. Who stepped up is Ava Diverka, the goalkeeper, the sophomore. We were thinking, well, this is a chance for her to really prove herself. And so far, she stepped up big time for Penn State.
Finally got her first shutout of her career against Michigan State in Penn State's last game. That was 2 days ago. But today, way against Syracuse. We know that she was going to be tested a lot, stood tall in that first quarter with the penalty stroke save, and then a huge one on the APC as well. She has really been a star for this team so far.
And I know that it hasn't happened yet. The penalty corners haven't been going in, but I know Penn State doesn't want to give the Orange many more chances if they can help it. Syracuse converted 31% of their corners this season, and it's going down a little bit today. Haven't converted so far, but that's still a really good number. Syracuse, one of the best APC units in the country.
It's been their bread and butter throughout the entire season, and really over the past 2 years with Bo von Kempen. And both those chances today, it's not like that Syracuse necessarily did the wrong thing. They had shots on goal. Diverka has just been stepping up so far for Penn State.
The Nittany Lions with a 1-0 lead at the 30-minute break. When we come back, we'll take a look around the nation at the other top 20 matchups happening in field hockey. The number 6 team in the country trailing at halftime. Penn State with a 1-0 lead early at JS Coyne Stadium in Syracuse, New York. Welcome into our studios, Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalom. We've breaking it down so far. This game, Syracuse trying to get back into it going into the second half. But how about we take a look at other games that are going around the NCAA so far in field hockey. Top 20 matchups all around, a lot of field hockey in action today. And certainly it's been an interesting look. We got some big games.
I'm really looking at North Carolina against Boston College. 0-0 at the half. That's a Tar Heels squad that has won the last 10 matchups against the Eagles, and they just lost a couple of days ago to Wake Forest. They're really going to want that one.
Michigan beating Old Dominion on the road. 3 different scores for the Wolverines. They're spreading around the love just like Penn State usually likes to. But so far, it's just been 1 goal from the Nittany Lions. Morgan McMenamin, the lone goal scorer for Penn State. Now, I think you could go 2 ways here on your star of the half. Who'd you end up going with? Who's the star of the half?
I'm not going to go with McMenamin. As much as I want to, it's got to be Abby Diverka, just because she's been inconsistent to start this season so far for Penn State. She really stepped up for this squad in that first quarter. You knew that Syracuse was going to pepper her early on. There's Bo von Kempen. She comes up with a huge stop on the penalty stroke. 2 saves for her in the first half, and then an APC just a couple of minutes later does a great job on locking down, keeping the ball in front of her, and it's really what kept Penn State in the game, because that 1 goal they had wasn't like it was built up momentum. It was kind of just one that trickles in. So she's been doing a great job keeping them in the game.
Jesse Iceland was the goalkeeper that led up that goal for Syracuse, and Morgan McMenamin capitalized on that. Interesting star of the game. I like that pick. Even though she has 2 saves, she's been pressured a lot. The numbers don't tell the full story. She's played great so far. What about if these teams want to win? Going into the second half, we got a lot of field hockey left. What are the keys of the game?
Well, the keys for Penn State is to simply keep Diverka hot. She was so good, shut down Syracuse offensively, and you could tell that the Orange were a little bit rattled on the offensive side of the ball in that second quarter with Diverka shutting all of them down. And then Penn State just needs to start shooting. This is a team that had over 16 shots in their last 2 games, and they've only got 3 in the first half. We talked to Bryn Underwood pregame. She said the Nittany Lions are a second half team, so they're going to look to accomplish that. And then on the other side, for Syracuse, you got to take advantage of these opportunities. There's simply too many for you to pass up on, and we just saw how Penn State took advantage on a counterattack. If Syracuse can't convert, they're going to keep getting bitten on the other side of the field. They really need to take advantage, Riley.
Got to lock down defensively. I like that key as well, because if you're not scoring, you got to at least play well defensively, and those corners could prove differential if Syracuse can or cannot convert on them going into the second half. All right, now Penn State up 1-0. We're going to send it back to our friends Max Gifford and Bryn Underwood to get you covered with the next 30 minutes. A thriller in Syracuse, and the Orange come out on top 3-2, the final score, with 2 goals separated by just 60 seconds, both happening in the final minute of play. Just a thriller to watch. Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalom. Man, we're all worked up just watching that great victory by Syracuse, the game winner by Alana Hamilton. real impressive stuff.
Riley, I'm still catching my breath over here after that. What a performance out of Syracuse to battle back, trailing, score those 2 goals within a minute, and get a huge weekend sweep at Coin.
Now we're joined by the goal scorer of the game winner. Lana Hamilton is with us. Lana, congratulations on the win. Boy, I'm sure that felt great. You guys were trailing at halftime, 1-0. The offense came alive in the second half. What was the difference?
I think I kind of talked about it before. We decided that it's our home turf. No one should work harder on it than us. So we just really wanted to come out with some intensity, bring the fire, and just get ourselves back in the game.
Lana, you mentioned that home turf. You guys got swept at Coin last weekend. What does it mean to now sweep this weekend?
I mean, it's great. It's a good comeback for us, especially because we have our alumni here to celebrate. So I think it's just thanks, guys. But yeah, it's really great to come back from 2 big losses and then to have 2 big wins.
Thank you, Lana. Go celebrate the win.
Thank you.
Lana Hamilton joining us live post-game following that thriller of a 3-2 victory. Hamilton with the game-winning goal. Really, we weren't expecting it. We thought this is going into OT, but she said, little Paul George, she said, no OT tonight, ball game.
I can't believe it still, Riley. And just to get it in there and make something happen, that's what Syracuse had to do in the final minute. They pulled Tawny King out of the cage, just trying to throw anything they had at this Penn State defense, and they finally broke through.
Lana Hamilton, her first goal of the season, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Her 8th career goal, the senior, leading the Orange to victory. When we come back, we're going to break down the full game. We got highlights, we've got stats, we've got it all. You don't want to miss it. Stick with us after this short break. Syracuse with a game-winning goal in the final seconds. They knock off number 20 Penn State at home and maintain their top 10 ranking. Welcome into our studios, Riley Underwood alongside Dan Shalom. And we talked about the ending. We had Lana Hamilton on our show interviewing us. She said, their team was fired up after that win. Heartbreak for the Nittany Lions.
Certainly, and the Nittany Lions had the lead in the 4th quarter. They were pushing. Abby DeVerka was playing a great game in the cage, but just an unfortunate break for them down the stretch. But Riley, pays to show you how potent this Syracuse offense is. You give them too many opportunities, they're going to score.
Ended as a 3-2 game, but it didn't start out so high scoring. A lot of defense in this one.
Certainly, and for the Nittany Lions early on, it was all Abby DeVerka. She stops Bo Von Kempen's penalty stroke, and then after that as well, steps up in a huge way on an APC, and Von Kempen up to this point had been perfect on the season from the spot, not to be that time.
You don't see too many misses from the APC mark or the penalty stroke mark from Bo Von Kempen. A rare miss early on. Ava DeVerka had a great game.
Certainly did, but then eventually there's only so many opportunities that Syracuse can have until Penn State's going to strike back.
And they did strike back. An Olympico-style goal from Morgan McMenamin. Her first goal of the season, only her 2nd of her career, and then just a little trickery. Syracuse noticed that their corner attempts weren't working. They tried to pull something else out. Didn't really work.
At the end of the day, you got to go back to old, reliable Hattie Madden doing a great job drawing this APC. You can see how fired up she is. That was when Syracuse was trailing 1-0.
Bo Von Kempen, it looked like she initially got the goal. It ended up being credited to Hattie Madden, so she notches another goal in the season, and then it was just mayhem after that.
This just turned into a shootout down the stretch between Syracuse and Penn State. 17 total shots in the 4th quarter.
Joji Purdy trying to come out of this one with the ball. She does, and she ends up giving Penn State the lead 2-1, and it looked like the Nittany Lions had run away with this one. There was only 5 minutes to play. Oh, hold on, wait a minute. Something's not right, Syracuse said. We are not done. The penalty corners weren't working in the first half. The 4th corner, they showed out. Bo Von Kempen with the goal. That ties it up at 2 apiece. Thinking we're going to overtime. Penn State falls asleep at the wheel. Lana Hamilton gets credit for the goal, the game winner. Syracuse takes the win 3-2. And look at that shot disparity. Penn State was doing more with less shots. Syracuse, 24 shots, 13 on net. That is insane.
Too many opportunities for this offense. If you give them 13 shots on the cage, they're bound to convert. And 9 corners as well. We saw it early on in the game. Syracuse was struggling on the APC. They switched up the tactics and then eventually went back to what's worked all season long, that being Bovan Kempen. She leads the nation now with 17 goals.
She does lead the nation. 17 goals for Bovan Kempen. That's more than she had all of last year. You said it in our pregame. Maybe a little record book watching early on.
Only 14 away, 31 goals, the single season record by a Syracuse player.
Well, the penalty corners ended up working right for the Orange at the end of the game. But it wasn't always like that. Early on, we were seeing a lot of missed shots, missed opportunities by Syracuse. They just were not finding the back of the net.
They had 7 shots in that first quarter, along with a couple of APCs, but they couldn't convert anything off of it. And this is uncharacteristic from Syracuse. We usually see them bury at least something if they're given so many chances, but it was large in part to Dvorka in the cage, who had been inconsistent coming into this game. She really played like she did a couple of days ago against Michigan State in the first half.
She sure did. Dvorka was showing out early on. Everything just seemed to fall apart for Penn State on the back line at the end. Syracuse ends up coming on top. That potent offense, one of the best in the country. The motor wasn't running in the first half. They kick-started after halftime.
You just can't give Syracuse that many chances, Riley. They are bound to score at some point.
And they sure did. 3 times in the second half, 2 in the final 5 minutes. The Orange were on 1 at the end of that. Well, let's take a look at what else is happening in the field hockey realm of college sports, and a lot of big games on Sunday. This Sunday, we have a couple big ones we were talking about before, Harvard and Monmouth in action. A couple other good ones as well.
Certainly, that big game at the top left, North Carolina, Boston College. Huge win for the Tar Heels. They come out on top after dropping to Wake Forest a couple of days ago. And the Liberty Flames, like you mentioned, they get it done against William and Mary 4-0.
Liberty is looking hot. That's a team you don't want to mess with. They went up. They beat Penn State in their first game of the season. They really haven't looked back. Their only loss was to the #1 team in the nation. So they are a tough team. Liberty is tough. Another game you might be looking at, Virginia and Stanford, an ACC clash. Cavaliers just beat the Syracuse last weekend. Cavaliers are looking good.
They're looking great, and to come into Coyne and beat Syracuse is a massive feat, as we just saw of how the Orange handled the Nittany Lions. They're definitely going to be carrying that momentum out west.
Well, this one was probably better than all of those games on your screen that you just saw. A 3-2 thriller at JS Coyne Stadium. Syracuse stays on top. The Orange with a big win, a heartbreaker for the Nittany Lions. 3-2 the final score, game-winning shot in the final minute of the game. The Orange go to 8-2 on the season and knock Penn State down. Penn State still winless on the road so far in the 2025 campaign. Well, a team that struggled this weekend, the Orange on top. Yesterday, the Orange in football, not so hot. Lose to Duke 38-3. Our Jonah Rodman, a great friend of ours, is in studio to break down the X's and O's.
Thanks, Riley. It was a tough one for Syracuse football yesterday afternoon in the Dome. In their 38-3 loss to Duke, the Orange faced issues on both sides of the ball, but stopping the Blue Devils' rushing attack proved to be one of the biggest challenges. Duke piled up more than 250 yards on the ground, and that's the most SU has allowed since last November. So let's take a closer look at a couple of plays that show where things broke down for Syracuse against the run. This first play comes in quarter number 1, and Nate Shepard takes it 50 yards to the house to make it 10-3 Blue Devils. But what exactly went wrong here? Well, watch number 8, David Reese. He's the defensive end. He fails to set the edge. He overcommits inside, and Shepard hits the hole, and he's off to the end zone. The next player to keep an eye on is Cornell Perry. He too overcommits. He should be filling the hole and making the tackle, but he gets caught too far upfield, and Shepard does the rest. The next play is right before halftime, and Antoine Delorier comes straight down on the dive instead of taking an angle. As a linebacker, you want to force the running back into the teeth of the defense where your help is, right? Brahim Long comes down, and he looks out of place, but that's only because Delorier didn't set the edge. Syracuse gives up a big run before halftime, and Duke moves the chains. So a couple of small breakdowns up front and at the second level turned into big plays on the ground for Duke, which added up over 4 quarters. Syracuse has a chance to clean things up this week before hitting the road for a matchup at SMU on Saturday. Guys, back to you.
Thanks so much, Jonah. The Orange hoping to improve after that loss against Duke. Before that, Syracuse was on a heater, beating Clemson on the road, and then to come back, well, you lose your starting quarterback. That's always going to hurt. Maybe they can get things back on track.
Expect Fran Brown to bounce back in a big way. He took full responsibility for that loss after Duke saying it was his fault. He was outcoached. The Orange are going to be ready to go next Saturday.
Certainly they will. I know Fran Brown is not taking that loss lightly. Not at all.
No shower for
No
Fran Brown
shower
this
for
weekend.
Fran. No shower for Fran. Let's take a look at what else is happening around the hill in Syracuse. A couple other sports are in action. Syracuse men's soccer beat California last night 2-0. Right now, volleyball in action against the Cardinals from Louisville, one of the best teams in the nation. They're winning 2-0 right now.
Certainly a big game for Syracuse. They've been trying to get going in ACC play, and they're playing a rough team in Louisville ranking-wise. And then on women's soccer side of things, Syracuse paying a visit to Stanford out west. They're looking to just find their footing in ACC play, and Shea Vanderbosch may be able to break the all-time saves record in that game. So certainly one to watch out for this afternoon.
And Syracuse women's ice hockey was also in action. They took on Minnesota Duluth for their opening series. Marissa Kogan has the details.
It was a cold open for Syracuse women's ice hockey this week as they lost both games in a homestand against number 6 Minnesota Duluth Thursday and Friday. 2 back-to-back shutouts kicked their season off 0-2. However, this opening series still offered early insight into potential playmakers and difference makers for Syracuse this season. On the defensive side, freshman goaltender Ava Drabick made 44 saves in her debut on Thursday, a true Syracuse performance. Although the first Duluth goal came less than a minute into the game, Drabick held the Bulldogs to 1 until halfway through the second period. In front of the goal, she had help, as Syracuse players tallied 19 blocked shots that game, led by sophomore defenseman Jessica Chung. Both Chung and Drabick had strong performances on Friday as well. Not allowing any goals on 13 shots in the first period, Drabick made 33 saves, and Chung was one of 5 Syracuse players to block more than 1 shot throughout the game. Offensively, junior forward Jackson Kinsler led Syracuse with 6 shots over the series. Last season, Kinsler was second on the team in total shots, behind only recent graduate Bryn Sorella. This leadership by Kinsler is imperative to Syracuse success this season. The Orange get a week off before heading to Easton, Massachusetts this Friday to play a series against Stonehill College for the Skyhawks season opener. And if Drabick, Chung, and Kinsler can bring the heat, Syracuse just might come home with their first win of the season. Until then, Riley, back to you.
Thanks, Marissa. Good stuff. Well, let's take it back to Coyne for a moment. Syracuse, a big win over a ranked opponent in Penn State. Now, the Orange have won 2 straight, but the road doesn't stop here. 8-2 is the Syracuse record, but ACC record not looking so good. Still winless in ACC play, searching for their first of the season, but they're going to have to wait until after next game to get that started because they face Colgate on Friday. That starts at 5 o'clock, and then they get into the ACC meet of the schedule, Stanford, then California, then a big one against UNC.
Colgate, the last non-conference game of the season for Syracuse. Stanford and California out on the West Coast, 2 teams that Syracuse beat last season, and then that's a massive one at the bottom. Second-ranked North Carolina coming to town. Last year, the Orange got thrashed 5-0 at Chapel Hill.
That's a big game on the schedule, big game for the rankings too when we talk about postseason implications. First, you got to take it one game at a time. You got to beat Colgate at home. That's on Friday. That's not the only game happening on the Hill on Friday. Men's soccer also in action. They take on Boston College. The Eagles will have your full studio coverage on Cuse.tv, Cuse.com for the pre and post game. and live on ESPN Plus, ACC Network Extra on halftime.
That'll be a good one, too. Syracuse has some momentum right now, winners of 2 straight after that 2-0 win against California yesterday. Should be a fun one on a Friday night at SU Soccer Stadium.
Exactly. Maybe the fans will be a little rowdier on a Friday night here in Syracuse, pumping up the team. Ian McIntyre, he just broke a record, trying to add on a few more wins to his record. Well, we had a big one today. 3-2 win. I mean, I keep saying it's a thriller. It was a thriller. I mean, closing seconds, it went down to the wire. Looked like Penn State was going to win. They were up 2-1, and it looks like we're going to OT. And now we're here talking. I thought we'd be watching penalty shootout at the end because how close this game was. It was really a thrill. I just keep saying it. It was a thrilling win.
It was a thriller, and Syracuse is just so resilient. They did not take no for an answer, trailing by a goal with 5 minutes left to go. They not only tied up, but get the winner. This is the confidence boost that this squad needed heading into next weekend. Now they can probably pick up that Colgate game and really have some wins stacked up, some good team momentum heading into that West Coast trip.
Syracuse, a big win, but it didn't look so good at the beginning. Penn State was down 1-0. How does that change? What was different in the second half than the first?
They just started firing on net. They weren't scared to try and find the perfect chance. Syracuse was just letting it rip, and that was the reason why they also scored that last goal. Just throw it in the circle and see what happens. Syracuse knows that it can benefit so well from those APCs. Just get it in the circle, and good things are going to happen.
Penalty corner unit for Syracuse, probably the best in the nation, if not one of the best. Well, thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. For Riley Underwood, Dan Shalom, our producer, Isabel Kelly, thank you for joining us. Have a blessed day.